Hello citizens. I'm gonna record a mining demo with the Prospector for Quantanium in the Iron Halo. And let's start. If you're going mining, you're not gonna need any of these gears. So feel free to just, store them local. You're not gonna need that healing thing or that pen or anything like that because you're in the ship. You're never outside really. You're gonna need an undersuit and a helmet. I'm gonna wear a white one because it's in style. And if you feel like you're gonna get a med pen but you really don't have to, you don't get out of your seat to use it. But if you're worried that way, so you climb out the ladder or something and you get hurt, you can, just arm one of these just in case, so you can heal yourself. That never happened to me. I usually turn off chat so the chat doesn't block any rocks I'm trying to look at. Let's go get the ship where we talk about the mining heads and modules, and also the location of the Iron Halo. Let's talk about the location first. I am here in H1 right now, her H1. You can start, here, the moons, or L2, it doesn't matter, because the distance we're going to compare to the distance differences here is minimal. But basically, you don't see the ring anymore, they don't render that anymore, but if you zoom in, you will see it. But even when you see it, well, it's not rendering right now, but they used to refresh and render somewhere around here. And the graphics you see, it's fake, it's just graphics. The actual halo is closer to the orbit of the Crusader, somewhere around here. But if you look at the map, you'll see a lot of rocks here, which is totally wrong. So don't go by the map, just don't go by the map, basically. And we'll revisit that as we're traveling to it. But just give you an idea, there's a ring of asteroids just outside of Crusader's orbit. So there's a ring of asteroids right there. And you're trying to cut your quantum drive not exactly, but because that ring is also multi-ring, so they're bands. You could arrive in one band, and then you travel a little bit more, it'll be completely empty. And then you travel a little bit more, you'll be inside rocks again. You travel a little bit more, it'll be empty again. Stuff like it's like Saturn's ring. It's just beyond Crusader's orbit. So as you can see, if I'm starting out from here, I'm gonna plot a course to ArcCorp, or L1, doesn't matter, but I like ArcCorp because my number is for ArcCorp. So what I do is I plot a course to ArcCorp, and that gives you a remainder number. Right? I can turn it off. See, every object you click here, it gives you that distance to that object. So from here to ArcCorp is 23 mil km. And we're trying to start the QT, and depending on what drive you have, how fast your drive is, I have a middle tier stealth drive. I'll cut the drive at around 9.6 mil km, and that would dump me in 9.5-ish or 9.4-ish mil km from ArcCorp. You'll see that later. And I find that's a nice high density rock, and I can also show you what I mean by low density and high density belts later. So that's for location. Oh, by the way, other tutorials. Oh, it's bugged. It's gonna load again anyway. And try that again. See, the star maps sometimes don't show up like this. And there's not much you can do. You just gotta wait for load. But as you can see, I start from her L1 to Akop. A lot of tutorials you see online starts in the art L1, no, in the crew L1 or something, going back up. You know what? Before that, let's go to visit the refineries. The refineries are available in her L1, L2, and all the L1s in the other one. So our L1, crew L1 also has refineries. And you go into refineries from these elevators. They're usually located close to easy apps. And the space is orangey, so go into these all inner station transit. And there'll be a Galleria hangar. That's where we are at right now, and refinery. Looks like refinery is going to be a bit of a travel. Check the map again. Yeah, so a lot of tutorials on the YouTube start from here, you know, L1, going to L3, or L3, and do try to cut the drive at around the belt here. Remember, this is fake. This is graphics. The belt is actually here, and not there, right? So if you read the triangle as your ship approaches, you will never find it. It's just trial and error by fellow citizens on the, you know, what number you should stop at. But of course, now that you know the belt is somewhere closer than the actual graphics, you can test yourself. You can test this out. So for example, you know, you can go L5 to Arco or whatnot and find out what that number is. And people usually don't mine Quantanium in her L1 because I have a 6% penalty. But I actually like it because of the penalty. So that, you know, logical and normal people wouldn't be here. So there's less traffic. That's why I picked this place. Because I'd rather lose 6% than to deal with any kind of pirates or any kind of stoppage. So as you can see in the L1 green plate station, you have a minus 6% Quantanium penalty. Alright. Makes no sense that I'm doing it here, but again, I'm doing it here because it's quiet, exactly because of the penalty. I love doing it here. I have a thing completed and another one processing at the moment. This is where you refine your ore after you finish. You can also sell your ore directly here for half the price without paying refining money. Or you can refine them in here in this panel. You'll pay some refinery fees, but your final sell would be double the money that you would have gotten from the ore. So that's upstairs. Downstairs, I want to turn that back on because I'm paranoid. Downstairs is where you can buy the armor, the backpacks, the modules, the various mining heads, clothes, and it's also where you can rent the Prospector. So we're Vantage Rentals here, and don't bother clicking these because just click all because only, you know, rent 3 ships. So you can rent the rock here, you know, and the Cuddy Black here and Prospector here. I used to rent the Cuddy Black with the rock combo, so total you can see there's only $39,000. But I find that mining gems, it's paying very little compared to, you know, what I could get paid, or I can make from mining Quantanium in space with Prospector. So I'd rather pay, you know, 52,000 and then 20 more thousand for the Landsat 1, the mining head. Total cost would be around 70,000. With modules would be around 80,000 to start. So if you have around 80,000, you could just rent the Prospector and start making 250k a run, right? And that was my plan for 3.15 white. So you can rent that here. Rent a day. Don't go crazy. You don't really need to, because once you do, 10 runs of these, you can afford to buy one. You don't need to rent anymore, so you don't really have to pay more than that. And then on this panel, it's where you can buy the mining head. The L1 does not sell the Landsat 1. And you look at the 5 tabs, you wonder, oh, where the hell can I buy the mining heads? You can actually scroll these tabs. Nobody knows. See that? You can scroll the mouse wheel on here, and you'll see an extra tab, utility. So her L1 only sells Helix 2 and Landsat 2, which is not what we need. We need class 1s for the Prospector. So I actually went to her L2 to buy the Landsat 1, and I think it's around $18,000, $20,000. The modules, you don't need it to start. You can just mine it raw. The modules just makes it easier, make the green zone a little thicker, so it's easier to adjust power. I use a filter XL because I don't like inert. They don't sell money, and you have a limited amount of cargo in your Prospector. So I use a filter XL. I use a search and a stampede. There's no they're both here. Good. So these 3 modules, they're all here. Filter, search, and stampede. So I would put show you the ship. I actually rented a freelancer at Alvarez Harbor to sell the ore. That's why you see the lock there. I still have the freelancer for now. So for loadout, I keep everything default except the quantum drive, because I want to be as efficient as possible. Like I want each run to use up the whole tank. Therefore, you're going at the fastest speed possible, going and coming back, because it's important. Quantanium will blow up in 15 minutes on the first scoop. So you want to come back as quickly as possible. And I find that the stealth drives are pretty nice. I could use the Spectre, I could use Zephyr, it doesn't matter. It's just faster than your normal civilian flavor. That's why I'm using it. So that's the only thing I changed. For weapons, I stripped them. You don't need weapons, forget about them. And utility is where, I actually finished using those 2, so I gotta buy them again. So search and stampede, so let's go do that now. The video is going to be long because I'm going through everything, and I find they're important. So search one. Make sure of the size. I think these are all size 1, but not sure. And a stampede. So for the attributes, you can go read on your own or other YouTubes or whatnot. I don't want to go through these. It's super detailed that way. I'm just showing you what I do when I go mine Quantanium, basically. So you gotta wait a little. And that's why I turn on the display info, so that I can see that something's loading, so I know it's moving and not stuck. And sometimes when this happens, I would change tabs. Go back there and then choose the ship again. Sometimes it helps, I find. See? So the mining laser, I use a Landsat 1. It comes with the Arbor 1. This one's quite garbage, doesn't mine Quantanium. Some low mass stuff probably. Quantanium has a huge resistance. I think that's it. It's not the mass. The mass around the same, but the resistance would not let you mine it with the default mining laser, which is a problem, right? Because when you rent a ship, you can't change loadout, right? So how am I supposed to rent that ship and change to a Lancet when I can't even edit the loadout, right? The trick is rent the ship from somewhere where you're not going to use it, go back to where you're going to use it, claim the ship, and quit the game. Just quit. Just do this. Quit. Like right after you click claim, quit, right? And you can immediately go back into the game, and all of a sudden the game will treat your rental ship with the lock thingy here. I've never done it to the Freelancer, that's why the Freelancer is locked. So let's see what loads. And because it says there's a rental period on it, read only, you can't change anything, see? You can look at it, but nothing, lines up on the right. So the trick to unlock that is to go somewhere else, claim the ship, and quit. Once you do that and come back anytime you want, you can immediately, you don't have to wait for the timer or anything. Come back, and the ship will all of a sudden act as though you own it, and that's when you can fit the Lancet on it. So I fit a Lancet class 1 on it. And I'll fit a search. And then I fit a Stampede. And also I rebind my keys instead of Alt 1, Alt 2, Alt 3 to activate modules. I just bind into 1, 2, 3. So I don't have to press Alt. And the reason why I outfit the modules like this is so that I don't have to press 2, so I don't press something wrong by accident. So I press 1 to start, and then I press 3 when it's in the green, right? So I don't mess up. So once you fit the mining heads you need on your ship and the modules, you can go ahead and start the mining trip. It's a lot of walking simulator. Welcome to the walking simulator. So as you were riding the elevator, again I want to repeat that they show a graphics of the ring, but it's only graphics. The actual ring is actually closer to the orbit of Crusader here. And once you hit a good number, you can test any intersection. So instead of going here to here, that uses more time. I'm still doing this at the moment because I don't bother calculating whatever, right? But once you know the ring is around here, you can actually go from L2 to RL4 and mine the same ring just beyond the crew L3, right? So if you know the number, you try an error, you guess the number correctly or whatever, this trip is actually way shorter than the trip I'm about to do now, right? So as you can see, if you do shorter trips, your profit per hour is gonna increase, right? So what I'm doing right now is not the most efficient. I'm just showing you what I do when I go for Quantanium. And after you do the claim trick, right, the timer will be gone in the Prospector. And it will look like this, right? Mine look like this because I actually bought it in game. I made 2.3 mil or whatever and paid for it. Also, when I go out to mine in a Prospector mole, I don't use head tracking. I turn all the head tracking and VR or whatnot off. Like, or Tobii Eye or whatever you have, turn it off, because when you turn your head, the aim is going to mess up the crosshair, and if the crosshair is not directly in the middle, it gets really hard for the M mode or V mode to scan the rock, right? So you don't want head tracking for this. If your head keeps moving or whatnot, it's going to mess up the scanning. There used to be a bug where if you stand here and open the door, you will climb up the ladder and you'll die and you'll fall through the ship. I think they fixed it. So now that wherever you stand, they will reset the animation to start from directly in the middle, so you don't get killed anymore. You can also look at the mining head in the modules here. It's really cool. That's something I like about Star Citizen, is everything's physical. So you bought this mining head, it will look a little different, and you can tell there's a lens set if you're a hardcore miner and whatnot. And all these modules are actually physicalized, right? So that's a filter, right, from Grey Cat. Don't know which one's Search or Stampede, but it's so cool that they bothered to model it, right? So in here you can just quite casual and just click, tap F. It'll reset the animation to the middle, see? Look. Boom, see? You actually step back. So a lot of things have been fixed since day one. You know, we used to die a lot in this ship. Whoops. Hello? Upon turning on your ship, make sure that you have fuel, because when you keep doing this, you'll run out of fuel, and by the time you get back, the Quantanium, it might be about to blow up and you're in a hurry, so you almost never refuel in the return run, right? So make sure you have fuel before you leave. And you can see that my capacitor also 100% the engine, because we're not fighting. I don't need weapons or shields. Right. Just want to make sure all the boosts, you have all the boosts available in case of emergency if you're running into a rock or whatnot. Right. So in here I don't bother plotting a course, but you can if you want to. I've been doing this so many times, I know that's our course. Right. But you can also plot a course if you want. You can. Thank you. And please visit again. You know, as I said, I start from the here. Doesn't matter. Hurston, L1, L2, doesn't matter. I'll click on ArcCorp and I will set route. And that will give you the Quantanium fuel requirement to go to ArcCorp. But we're not going to ArcCorp. We're stopping right here. Right here. Right. So it's not going to use 400. Don't worry about it. And by doing that, you will see a number, right? See that number? It's 23 mil kilometers to ArcCorp. We want to hold B, so we want to stop the quantum drive when that number says 9.6. Or it doesn't matter. It could be 9.7, 9.6, 9.5, 9. Whatever. Around there, right? So I'm going to hold B at around 9.6. And you'll see why. Because there will be a residual speed as your QT is stopping. It won't drop you right on 9.6. You'll end up in 9.45 or something like that, right? So here we hold B. And then after holding B, I immediately tap B to get rid of the UI because I hate this shit. That thing. That giant distracting spooling whatnot, right? So I tap B to get rid of that so I can read the number better. I remember when that number hits 9.6, you hold B. Just keep an eye on it. And now you see why I fit a faster quantum drive in the Prospector. Right, imagine, right? Because the Prospector, I forgot what it came with, maybe an industrial or civilian or what, I forgot. But if your drive is slow, everything's slower. And if your drive is too fast, you could run out of fuel for the return trip, right? So again, right, if you're doing your run from here to here, then your fuel requirement would be different, right? So you can even make the trip even more efficient by going military, QT or whatever, right? So you gotta work that out. For my way of doing it, I worked out so that using a stealth drive gives me the most speed and the most safety. Look at the number, 9.6, you hold B. We're almost there. 9.6, I'm gonna hold B, and you're gonna see. There's a little skip at 11.4, I think that's where the band starts. Hold! There, right? So I held it at 9.6, and now, just ignore the rocks for now. Now I'll tap B again to show you. See the number? So I held B at 9.6, it dumped me at 9.45. So for this specific drive at that specific distance, because your drive works at different speed at different stage of your trip also, right? In the middle is the fastest, for example, when you're about to reach a destination, it's going to slow down. So it's not a totally accurate science, right? So for this particular setup, right, I know that I hold B at 9.6 and it will dump me at 9.45. It's trial and error. You gotta try it to know. Okay. But for me, I find that around 9.4, 9.45, or 9.5 gives me the highest density rock like this. If I held B at 9.8, some of these rocks would be missing, right? So I'll end up in a place with like lower density belt. Is less apparent now because this patch they took away the they reduced the viewing distance of the rock. So you can no longer do the visual scan. Like in 3.14 we would hold F and do this, zoom in. And then I would roll the ship. I would visually scan the clusters as I'm whizzing by. But in 3.15 they patched it so that you can't do this anymore. The rocks don't load no matter how far you zoom. They only load in at a really tiny bubble around your ship. So you can't do this anymore. So we have to go back to the shitty luck-based scanning method with the tab. And that makes mining a lot harder. But still worth it if you enjoy the zero risk or whatever. But again, okay, so that's the high density versus low density belt. You know it when you drop in. If you drop into something empty, go an increment of increment by increment. I mean the number. If you drop into something empty, just go in the increment of 50,000 or 100,000, whatever, until you arrive in another band with rocks again. Remember, these are in bands, right? So you have low den, high den, low den, empty, low den, high den, low den, empty, like that, right? As you're traveling to them. Now at this moment, what I usually do is I roll up the wheel twice to set the cap speed. That thingy. To put it a little bit in the red because I don't like going too slow. I'll also cap the speed. So instead of dash square, solid square. So my ship can only go up to a certain speed. Because I go crazy sometimes. If you like visibility, you didn't have to, but in the previous patch where you do the visual scan, if you like to see rocks like this, like white, instead of, because of the danger, right? If you view the rocks like this, sometimes you don't see them, it's actually it's black, and you might crash into them if you're not careful. If you're paranoid about that, go into external cam with F4, rotate the ship, until you see that the sun is directly behind you, and you can tell from the shadow of the two thrusters. You see the shadow? You see see that? See how the whole back of the ship is lit? I can even move it like that to make sure the shadows line up. See that? The shadows on the two thrusters. I can't point it to you, but if I move the ship, see the shadow? So I know that at this point the sun is directly behind me. I press F4 again, and now every single rock you look at would be white like that. So they will show up if you're about to crash into them and die. There's no excuse. Okay, that's one way to be safe. Another way to be safe is you hold F, zoom in, and you see that if I go forward, I'm probably gonna die. So I'm actually gonna aim down like this, somewhere empty like that. So now I know that as long as I don't use my vert or lat thrusters, I just use the main thrusters, I'm never gonna crash into a rock if I go on this line. Of course, when you start mining, it's not as simple as that, because your ship doesn't move in a straight line, right? But at least when you start, you don't want to die right when you start before you find anything, right? So that's another step I would take when I first arrive at the belt. Another thing when I first arrive at the belt is I want to see if there are already rocks that lit up. So far none, there's no rock right now that lit up. So we can start mining, right? And what I would usually do, a lot of people do is they will press V. They will go into scanning mode, and they'll roll the wheel, whatever you bind your thing to. They will hone in on the scanning accuracy and the range, and then they'll find a rock and they will scan it, right? I don't like doing that because I find that you can actually skip it. You don't need the V. What I usually do is I press M for mining mode. And the reason for that is because when you arrive at a rock, the mining mode, as long as you keep the crosshair on the rock and it lights up yellow outline, it will start scanning the rock ready for mining anyway. The mining head scans it anyway. You don't need the scanning mode at the moment, right? However, scanning mode is useful when you press tab. These boxes light up and tells you where the interesting bits are, which is scanning mode anyway. So I press tab to do that, to ping. Another thing I like to do is to keep the arc corp on the route, so that when I move away from it, there's an arrow pointing to it, see? And when I move away from it, again, there's an arrow, right? So that I don't get lost and I don't double back on myself. So I tend to travel towards arc corp the whole trip, so that I don't scan, the rock that I already scanned, like a marker in the black. So let's start finding some Quantanium. So I press tab, and then I'll just go to the closest one because I'm lazy. I fly decouple, by the way. So that's pretty much, are they Quantanium? Don't know, but again, space break, I hold X here. And boost if you wanna. And these are P-type, but P-type is not Quantanium. Quantanium is Q-type. So we need some Q-type. Let's stop the ship. I can show you some funny things. So these are P-types, and these two fooled me, made me think that it's Q-type because they're really close to each other. But the distance from this rock to this rock is actually too far to be Q-type. The Q-type's clusters are all close like this. All the rocks are close together like that. And before, when we used to be able to do visual scanning, we would identify that from way out and fly towards it. But now you can't do that. So if you want to, you can still identify boxes and then F-zoom to identify it like that without scanning it, if you want to. But I usually don't, because I don't want to miss. So I press tab again. More boxes. This is what I mean by boxes. So I see a 7K, I go to a 7K now. I'm going backwards, see? The sun is, right? This is not optimal. But I want to check these two things out before I head back to the hardcore. Now you see these clusters? This is probably M, because they're still quite far away from each other. Let's check them out. See, now you see why you don't want head tracking. Because if this thing is moving around, it's never going to pick up from far like that. It's actually E type. So it's not Q type, it's not the Q we're looking for again. If you zoom in, you see the spacing of the rocks. Q type would be half of these space. You see how the whole, it's not just two. Like these two would look Q. It's how they're in relation to the whole cluster out, right? And you do it more and more, you recognize them. There's another box on the right. Oh, there are actually 3 of them. Let's check these out. So I actually fly towards it a little closer because I want to check the other 2. See, I want to check, right? So they're actually, I think we got lucky. We dropped in a good spot in just all these clusters. And then I'll put the thing on it. And these are Q type. So these 2 are Q type. Whenever they spawn together. So whenever you have a Q type, the other one will also be a Q type. Now, before we unveil what number they are, let's check the other ones. So that's E type, right? And because these are E type, that's also going to be E type. So you can ignore them. Don't worry about that. And there's a white thing there too, so we gotta check that out too. Now watch out for the rocks at the top, because Q type, you gotta remember that, right? Because we want to check these out, but before that I'll also check this out. And it's super hard. You could put the crosshair on the thing. So that's a P type. We don't need that. So let's scan the Q types. Right, so again, like I'll scan one with the V, and then scan another one with the M to show you why you don't need the V, right? So I'm using the V. Point onto it. The signal strength is 100. I'll scan it, look. So that's a 2.1% Quantanium on the right. See that? The mass is 4931. And it tells you the resistance, right? 0.3. You don't need that. I use M. Okay? And M, you know, I just like reading this instead. You see how when I move the F, the thing goes away? See? That's why you don't want head tracking. But I'd rather have that instead, because that text is in red. So I know it's 2.1% quicker. So scan this one. That's another 2.1%. So we're looking for 25% or over. For the Prospector, it's actually worth to go 30% or over, because you almost guarantee a full load of pure Quantanium. 25% would give you, you know, pretty good, like 2K micro SEU or whatnot. But if you have a 30% or over, that would guarantee a 32 SEU of Quantanium. See, I'm not bothering with those because I don't want to go backwards. No, I won't. Oh, what is that? Let's check that out. That's E. Don't need that. Go back to the arrow. You see the arc corp is what I'm talking about. So I actually turn away from the arc corp, see what's up. Let's check out the 11K one, see what that is. Again, I'm going backwards. It's not optimal. And it's dangerous, right? Because they're all black, see? You don't know if you're running into a rock right now. So just fly your ship and M the rocks. Right, we're double backing, see? That's the 2.1% we already finished, so that is bad. To avoid that, to avoid doing that, like the boxes, you know, luring you to go back, bind the key. You can bind the key to adjust the scan angle of your ping of the tab. I bound mine to the greater than less than sign. It's hard to read, you know. So now you see that as I adjust the angle, the FOV is going from 180 to 90, whatever, right? I turn it to 180. This is only going to ping whatever's in front of me. So I'm not going to get that problem anymore, pinging things in the back. So now I only ping boxes in the front, or relatively front, like the front half, because it's 180. Well, this part might take an hour. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'll probably cut it out until I finally reach a Q type that is worth mining. So this is where I'm going to cut the vid.